I would like now to welcome up on stage the panel discussion that is going to talk more about building, how can Africa build a sustainable startup ecosystem. And to join the discussion, I'd like to welcome up on stage Engineer George Mulamula from DA Technohama Business Incubator. Please, a round of applause as he's coming on stage. To join him, I'd like to welcome Micah Shako from Tsavo Labs, Kenya. And Desa David from nHub, Nigeria. Desa. Krupa Patel from Anza. Is Krupa Patel here? No, but now, the facilitator for this session, I'm going to mention this in a very, very special way. Oga? So, the facilitator is Mr. Olusegun Ohimeh Oruame from Nigeria. Did I say that well, Oga? Welcome on stage. Eh?
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shako. I am going to be moderating the discussion here this morning. We've heard a very wonderful paper by Bernard on the African ecosystem and how startups could leverage on opportunities or the portfolio of opportunities that we have there. I have very wonderful people here with me this morning also. And what are we going to talk about? Simply put, the future of Africa from perspective of the young people, technology, and government. Yeah, I have somebody from the government side here, because I have quite some, I have a challenge with getting government to drive their agenda for startup on the continent, and I hope I will not be harassing you too much. Okay, Desa, I will start with Desa. I'm familiar with what they are doing in Jos, in central part of Nigeria. So Desa, I just want to ask you, what will be the key things, being somebody who manages a hub back home, what would you say will be the key things to get the African ecosystem, startup ecosystem, going in the face of challenge and lackluster attitude from government?
Okay, what a tricky question, actually. Yeah, actually, one of the challenges you face basically is lack of policy. We have, where I come from, we have issues of policies actually working against the innovation culture, basically. Probably I've argued with so many people about how our culture, traditional culture basically works, has some spices of anti-innovation in them. And so basically when you come in, just like Bernard said in his presentation, you have government not understanding what you are doing, and then your major challenge will be getting them to understand exactly what you are doing so that they can carve out policy to support the startup ecosystem, basically. One of our achievements is actually getting myself into the policy-making body in order to bring down policies that will actually favor the innovation culture in JOS. So basically, that's it.
Yeah. So, Bernard, in your presentation, you said something about really getting government engaged in driving the startup or the innovation agenda on the continent. I just want to find it from you. Are startups doing enough on the, from your experience, probably in Kenya, are startups doing enough to engage government to be involved in building the innovation ecosystem in Kenya and elsewhere on the continent?
Yeah, very good question. Are startups doing enough? I don't think so. I think when you talk of the role of startups, they are innovators, okay? But a lot of the times is And I've seen this even in my own country. People do not have the initiatives to actually approach government and say, this is my problem, this is what I'd want, could you help me? I don't know, for example, how many people here have visited the Ministry of Industrialization in this country? I don't know whether you have that ministry here, but in Kenya we do have. How many people, how many entrepreneurs here have made an effort to go there and just say, I'm an entrepreneur, what opportunities exist, by a show of hands? Or any other government body, okay? So the problem is we always wait for government to come, but you're an entrepreneur, you don't wait for people to come, you go to them. And that's what has changed the conversation in Kenya, because we did not wait, you know? So you have to make that initiative, because if you don't, then government is really a big animal. It's busy. It is political. And there are so many forces driving it. So you also have to play your role. And I believe it's your role as a citizen, not just as an entrepreneur, you know, to demand your rights and to know that you actually have the right to talk to government.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Micah, I was going to ask you also, from you manage a lab in Kenya, what is your experience like from the perspective of young people? We have culture challenge. I was just speaking with somebody else there. I mean, a lot of people, because mostly Africans are merchants, and then you try to tell them that there is a new skill set that they could learn to function in the new age, in the new times. But the problem is either they are too hurry or they don't see a future there. How do you get young people to engage with you and to believe that Africa is evolving and we need to innovate not only in our choice of career, but getting new skill set out there to push the ecosystem?
Thank you so much. So for Tsavo Labs, we consider ourselves an aggregator, right? So we look at what everyone is doing within the ecosystem, try and synthesize that and use that learning to amplify the impact, right? So in terms of looking at what the question we've been asked, I think one of the key things, as you've rightfully said, is we need to address and encourage a significant mind shift, okay? So number one, we need to start looking at entrepreneurship, okay, as a viable alternative to employment, okay? And we need to encourage it and publicize it in the right way, using even the right sound bites, okay? So a clear example is the difference between saying, I'm a hustler, as compared to maybe I'm bootstrapping, okay? There's a big difference in terms of looking at those two things, and the right words that we use affect how that industry is looked at, okay? I think the second thing we need to really look at is, as entrepreneurs also, we need to start looking at our ventures as building for a legacy, as opposed to just, you know, hustling, right, or making a quick buck, okay? We need to look at building a legacy and building organizations that are scalable, you know, across your country, across your region, you know, across your continent, and hopefully globally. And I think the third thing that we usually look at, whenever we look at entrepreneurship and that space, we think of three key words, okay? And we call them the three Bs. Believing, beginning, and becoming, okay? Believing, beginning, and becoming. So I think if you look at Africa, we're not short of belief. As in every single African citizen believes he can contribute towards the betterment of the environment. But I think where we need to apply more effort is around the beginning and the becoming. How do we create the right structures to help people start or change these ideas from an idea to an actual venture? And more importantly, again, given the size of our countries, the size of our continent, how do we move these support structures outside the major cities and further into the mainlands or into the provinces, so that even those people who are living, who are immersed in those challenges, can actually use their ideas to build ventures that are sustainable and that are scalable?
Thank you very much. I'll come to you. but I'll still come back to you later. Still on government. Two key things really have been very important to advance the cause for the African ecosystem: funding and government. Funding, yes, from a lot of foundation from abroad, but in terms of government presence, how do we get government to get more engaged with innovation on the continent?
It takes a wonderful brother from Nigeria to put me in government. Well, you must meet him. Just to clarify it, I hold several hats. The major hat I have is I run the largest tech incubator in the country, and I would say in the region also. But then I was given another hat as being a government advisor on ICT and entrepreneurship, and I sit on the ICT commission, so maybe that's why my brother here is talking about me being in government. Now, let me answer you in a different way. I heard what Bernard said. Networking is very, very important. I remember when I came back to this country, and I networked with people in government, and then government gives out tenders, so I created my first, one of my series of companies that I created, and we tendered, and we got shortlisted, and we went for the final hearing, and then the chairman calls me outside later on and says, you know what, you're nearly going to get there, but you forgot something, everything is perfect. I said, what did I forget? How to consult my stomach. And that's the reality of life that we have to consider also, to a certain extent, which is now changing. And definitely we're moving away from that. But the other anecdote I want to put that will also look at that aspect has to do with, I think it's mindset. Mindset on the downstream, mindset on the upstream, and which involves both people in government and people, when I say downstream, are the entrepreneurs and the startups. Give you an example. Young men came to us when we were doing this, in the incubator, 6 months going around talking to the government, telling them that I've got this wonderful idea. What he had was a little application on the phone whereby it will be used for the police. You put in the number and it tells you whether the car is registered, whether insurance has been paid, and so forth. So he went around police, he went to our authority that deals with transportation, they asked him for papers, he kept on giving them, police, they kept on asking, so the ICT division, and after 9 months of getting nowhere, he came to us. So we looked at it and said, it's a good idea. We called up the Inspector General of Police, he said, we need to talk to you. So we went to see him, we explained, the young man made a presentation, and he said, the IGP said, I'll call you back, and we'll see how we work on this. And I thought it's going to, being government, it's going to take roughly about a month or 2 months before he calls us. And he rings us in 2 weeks' time, says, can you come next week to make a presentation to my commanders? I said, fine. So we went there, and while we're waiting, we're talking to him, I'm asking him, what made you change? You are so quick, I'm surprised for government. He said, 2 things. Number one, there was an accident that happened a couple of days ago on the road to another town about 121 kilometers from here. And it was first stopped halfway, maybe got a ticket, I don't know what happened there. As it neared the other town, it was involved in an accident and 2 people died. When we looked at the registration, it was registered to a motorcycle, and it was a Land Cruiser that was in an accident, and 2, it had no insurance. Then I remembered what you told us. So now I'm calling in front of our commanders so that you can listen to them. And one of the problems we have with us, senior people in government, is BBC. And I said, what does British Broadcasting Corporation got to do with this? And he says, no, it's us, born before computers. We don't understand some of these things. So anyway, the commanders who were, to make a long story short, the commanders all said, yes, fine, we will take it and utilize it, even those who had given the runaround to this young man. And so he gets to go ahead, and now he needs a letter from the regulator. So we go to the regulator, and he says, he's also part of government. He says, for this trial license, $1,000 per annum. So we negotiated on behalf of this man. It's okay, fine, because we know you're a partner, we collaborate, networking again. So he says, okay, fine, we'll give you a free trial for 6 months. He does it for 6 months. Now, first month, second month, then there's a tender document given out by another entity of government. You have to pay 100,000 for that document, 2 shillings. So we got it, we looked at it. 3/4 of it was what the young man had been submitted to that guy, to the organizations where they're asking for papers. So what am I trying to say here? You network, government is slow to understand, but government, when it's faced with challenges, and then they have their mindset and the leadership to say we need to solve this for the benefit of the nation and the people, then they are very, very much open to startups and entrepreneurs coming in with solutions. But it takes a certain mindset to do that. And this is one of the biggest things that we need to do. And that's a role as an incubator that I do in the country, because I've set myself as a PPP, but running this business and it's a company. Right, and limited by guarantee, but we don't make any profit. But we help our startups, we open doors, we get people to understand, and that's the only way government will understand and get things done.
Yeah. Oh, I really want to thank you for that. And then, sorry, before we continue, I need Clarence to join us on the panel here. I need her to come up. Yeah, she's from Rwanda, I understand. Clarence, I was told that this panel wasn't gender friendly. So just you sit somewhere there.
Thank you.
I'll be asking Clarence as she joins us. So much, I've read so much about the startup ecosystem in Kigali. I really want you to share with us here what is happening there. You know, just to continue from where I stopped with him, how much of government influence is put into encouraging and building the startup ecosystem in Rwanda? Maybe other countries could learn from that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start by introducing myself since I just got on the panel. My name is Clarisse Iribagiza, and I'm from Rwanda, a company formerly known as nHub Labs. We were recently acquired by DMM, so if you've seen the banner out there, it's DMM nHub now. And I would say that the fact that I'm here today representing DMM nHub and DMM Africa is a result of a lot of hard work that the government in Rwanda has put in place to encourage, first of all, entrepreneurship, making it some entrepreneurs are somewhat rock stars back in Rwanda. And it's tough, it's a hustle. I heard you talking about how do you rebrand it in a way that it doesn't seem like you use the word hustle. So, it's a bit of a rock star status, let's say, which really encourages a lot of young people to look at entrepreneurship as an option, a viable option for them if they cannot find immediate employment. So as a result, 7 years ago, I founded my business, nHub Labs, while I was still in college. And we started building apps and have been a part of almost every incubator or support system that is in place. Our first office space was in a government building while they were experimenting with having some kind of incubation space for startups. And how did DMM find nHub Labs? Again, it was that kind of collaboration with the private sector federation and government, courting investors in Japan and telling them there's something interesting that's happening in Rwanda. There's a group of young people that are ready to build amazing ideas if you could just support them. Here's the list of who they are. Go check them out and see for yourself. And about 8 months later, we had our biggest investment ever, and we are a happy team.
Okay, I will. Sorry, Bernard, I need to do a recap along your presentation earlier. I just want to ask this. Often when I'm asking you, okay, you have to speak. Often when we hear the word innovation, entrepreneurship, startup, and all that on the continent, the question is, what exactly a startup is doing? where should they focus on? What road should they take? What solution should they be looking at? What sales? What will attract investors from outside? What should startup focus on?
Thank you for that question. And I think before I answer that question, I've had twice now in this panel entrepreneurship as an alternative to employment. There is a danger to taking that approach in its entirety because I know a lot of self-employed people that are doing very poorly. They run small businesses, and it's those businesses will never grow. They are not in the business of building business empires or companies that will change the world. So we need to be very careful when we tell young guys that, you know, if employment doesn't work, hey, here's entrepreneurship. It's not exactly that kind of a solution. So, and it goes back to the mindset issue, because I think what entrepreneurs, what startups should be focusing on is actually solving problems. Sometimes they get obsessed with their ideas, okay? They fall in love with the idea to the extent that you can't change them, you know. Even when it's proven time and time again that you need to pivot or you need to try something else, the entrepreneur is fixated on the idea, on the solution. And I think that is a wrong approach. I think entrepreneurs should look at applying themselves in solving problems and being okay with failure, because you can fail now and succeed tomorrow. And we all know that even most of these mega successful entrepreneurs, they did not succeed on their first startup. You know, they had to go through a journey, and that journey shaped, you know, their success in the future. So I think entrepreneurs need to invest more in having the right mindset, looking out for opportunities, and solving problems, looking at problems and not falling in love with the ideas. Because, you know, I like what Jumane said yesterday. He's still trying or struggling to define what Sahara Spark is right now, or what Sahara is right now. And that is a phase that you have to go through. And that means that today you could be building chairs, and tomorrow, I mean, you're building cameras. It's perfectly normal in the entrepreneurship world.
I was going to refer to Joma's statement yesterday. Sometimes or often, you ask a startup, what are you? How do you define yourself? Well, he says I'm this, or she says I'm that. But yesterday I got this very good answer from Joma. He said, look, we're still trying to define what we are or who we are. We're still struggling with it. Madeza, I know you managed a startup back home in Nigeria, and then I can identify with your challenges and all that. But I just need you to also share here. What does it mean to be a startup? What does it mean to be a hub at the center or in a location where funding is scarce, government presence is lacking, and then, bandwidth is insufficient?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Jos is actually situated in the central part of Nigeria. Well, Jos is common or found on the internet for every bad reasons, ranging from crises, Boko Haram, bomb blasts, explosions, and all that. And then imagining an innovation hub situated around regions like that means you being faced with the challenge of understanding the peculiarity of that ecosystem. We understood actually that Jos is not a tech-consuming population, and if at any point they consume, then they are basically latecomers. like Lagos and Abuja has to consume everything before we get remnant of it in Jos. So we understood the peculiarity. Culturally, majority of people in Jos, or in either in the central part of Nigeria or the northern side, are basically not interested in entrepreneurship. They want to work. It's like a course if you're not working for government or an established organization. So entrepreneurship is alien there. So we had the issue of battling the cultural challenge of trying to, let's say, in fact, I told my colleague, probably we need to start at NGO and call it Center for System Rewiring, because when we came, we realized that the entire people need to be rewired kind of to understand the concept of innovation and all that. So we understood the peculiarity. Okay, people want to be employed, and so we looked at a model of how do we fit into this ecosystem. One of the things we do, okay, since you guys want employment, okay, come over. There is a gap in tech skills. Come over, let's train you up to be world-class software developers, and then we hire you out to organizations that require services. And then we started. We have fellowship sessions where we bring in people, we train them. And then the whole idea was to just train people within the region. And then to our shock, we had people coming from all over the country for the fellowship program. So we train them, make them software developers, give them the privilege to be involved in life projects that we are solving. And then once they are done, we hire them out to organizations. That was actually what they want, and then that is what we are giving them. And then coming down to government, when we launched, it was alien. We did so much publicity. We did so much programs to make people understand the importance of entrepreneurship and all that. And then we established a kind of a social contract with people. And then on social media, people were chastising the government. You guys have to partner with nHub. You guys have to do, these guys are doing amazing things. And we didn't even realize we were actually establishing such contract with people. Now, over time, the government had to call, okay, what is your problem? People are talking about you guys. We said, okay, fine. Your policies are not actually supporting what we are cultivating here. And then that's how we got into, I was actually selected to be part of the policy-making body. And then eventually, we injected tax rebates to tech startups and all that, which is currently in the second reading in the parliament. And then we hopefully are waiting for the final endorsement by the parliament. So that will mean that a lot of tech startups will be without paying tax, and that will be an incentive for a lot of people to be entrepreneurs, basically.
I had to ask Daisy that question because I was comparing two extremes. I'm very conversant with how Kigali is, and I'm also conversant with how Jos is. Now you're looking at two extremes. Kigali, you have robust infrastructure relatively, you have good government support, and then you have very strong young people there who want to learn how to be part of the innovation activities happening. Then Jos, you don't have infrastructure, you don't have government support. Jos is probably one area where if you're in Jos, you take your phone out and you're looking for GSM signal like this. Is it working here? Is there a signal here? But interestingly, you still have a hub there that is struggling through those challenges and managing to have success stories. I'll just end here. I can see the ultimate timekeeper is telling me, time up. I'll end with this. With my brother here, anytime you go to events like this, people always talk about success stories. It's as if we don't have stories for failures, or we don't have, incidents, stories or models where certain models have failed or certain startups have failed. There's a lot to learn from those stories of failures too. How do we manage our stories of failures in building the African startup ecosystem? How do we manage the failure stories, please? We'll end with that.
Have you shut us out, or? Hello? Okay. Yeah, this is good. Failure is very, very important. Unfortunately, we're in a culture whereby the older generation is risk aversive. They don't like to see failures, but we've got a group of, so we need to bridge the gap and address to those who are seniors in government, wherever they are, to say that failures are a way of creating more success, because it's like lessons learned, things that should be done better, and how do you do them better. So we need to learn and bridge the gap to do that. And to end this, I just want to say that one last thing, that might help with the failures. My first failure was Startup Tanzania, for example, which has looked at the whole thing, and it led into what we call the smart partnership, where the presidents were meeting, and then now it's leading to something else, the creation of angel investments, funds and seed funds within the country. So from the government perspective, they're learning this now, so it's very good. But then you need to have failure in order to do something even better the next time you do it. So along those lines also, let me just say one last thing. At the DTBi and Qitech, we've opened up another window for those innovators in the health and education sector. We're giving away $25,000 up to $100,000 US. So just go to our websites and you will see the challenge that is there. It's open. It opened 2 days ago. It's open for the next 1 month. Apply, and this way innovators and startups should try and look for extra funding for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.